2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, students, let's get started. Yes, so we are going to talk about the NP complete problems. Today and tomorrow we will talk about 3 CNF problem. All right. So this is just the last but one class. So we talk about NP complete problems. So when there are various ways by which we can classify the problems, right? So one way could be that we keep two classes wherein we say that the problems are tractable or intractable, right? So this is the dictionary meaning written of tractable. So what exactly we mean by a tractable problem? So a tractable problem can be solved in a polynomial time, basically. Okay, so you can say that for any tractable problem, it is going to be the complexity is going to be O of Fn, where Fn is polynomial, right? So then we say that it's a tractable problem. If it is not a polynomial time problem, then we say it as, let's say for example, exponential kind of a problem, we will say that it's intractable problem, right? So if the question is, if I have something like this on to the power 100 or on to the power of log something like this, so this is a polynomial time solution only, though it is very very big, and when n becomes very large this will be more, right? So but still we keep them as in the class of tractable problems. We really don't care about that. Okay, so we don't worry about if it is on to the power 100 or something, though it is, we know it is going to be very very big. Okay, so we don't worry about problems like this, because we say that if I have something as on to the power of 100, it's a polynomial time algorithm, I will have some way to solve it faster. For example, we can go for parallel computation for doing that. Okay, so few practical problems, those result in such solutions. Okay, so what we assume is, once we have a polynomial time algorithm, okay, we will be able to further make some changes to the algorithm. We will be able to find out more efficient algorithm. We are able to find it out, and moreover we can apply the parallel computation. So basically we still say that, okay, we are able to solve them in tractable amount of time. I mean, some, they are easily managed, basically we are able to manage them. Okay, then we talk there. So that is one class of problem. So here in tractable versus intractable, we say the problems which are polynomial time problems, I mean the algorithm runs in polynomial time, we treat them as tractable problems. And when it is not polynomial time, it is, let us say, exponential time, then we call it as intractable problems. It's just the classification. This is one classification, right? So we can classify the same thing differently, right? So that is one of the classification. Then another classification is solvable versus unsolvable problems. Few problems are not solvable, right? And few problems are solvable. Unsolvable means till date there is no solution that is provided for them. Okay, no solution is provided, or you can say the other way around, that the solution is provided, but solution is possible, but very difficult to find the solution. Okay, very difficult to find the solution means within a finite time, right? The problem should be solvable, but given some amount of time. Okay, so let's talk about that solvable versus unsolvable problem. What do we mean by a solvable problem? Okay, so a problem is solvable if we have been given a finite amount of time, we are able to solve it. So basically, it is possible to solve solvable problems. These are the dictionary meanings, or a solvable riddle when you try to find out what is the meaning of solvable. Okay, solvable means it is, in given amount of time, okay, enough time, you are able to solve it. then it becomes a solvable problem. Okay, so unsolvable means, maybe it is possible to solve, but not maybe in my lifetime, or it really takes a lot of time for which we cannot wait. I want to solve a problem. I want to make an algorithm for it. But let us say it takes a year for me to solve, but if I manually try to do it, or if I take a decision without actually finding the efficient solution, that is better, something like that. Okay, so then for example, we just see some of the problems. If we talk about a sorting problem, that n integers are given and we want to sort them from smallest to largest. Okay, so is this problem tractable? Is this problem intractable? Is this problem solvable? Is this problem unsolvable? We know that this problem is solvable, n log n merge sort. Okay, and it is also tractable, right? It's not polynomial time. It's not exponential time. It is solvable and it is also tractable. Another problem, enumerating all subsets. We want to find out all the subsets of a set of n items. Given a set of n items, we want to enumerate all possible subsets. We know that if n items are there, 2 to the power of n subsets will be available, right? So we want to actually find out what are those subsets. So 2 to the power of n subsets we know. But 2 to the power of n makes it exponential time. It is no more a polynomial time solution. So we will say that it is solvable. The problem is solvable, but it is not tractable because it is exponential time. So it is solvable, but it is intractable. Okay, why? Because if your n becomes large, okay, so it takes very, very long time. So intractable simply means it is difficult to handle. It is difficult to manage. Right, so that is one kind of problem, one kind of division that we saw: solvable, unsolvable, tractable, and intractable. Okay, another interesting question: given an arbitrary algorithm or a program is given, or let's say an algorithm is given, and I want to find out, for a given input, whether this program will terminate or not. Interesting problem, right? That is called as a halting problem. Halting problem means, that once you have seen in your FLA course, you would have studied that the machine halts. You say that once the job is done, the machine it halts, or sometimes if you don't give a right input, the machine halts. So here we mean by halting problem is, we want to find out, for this particular input, my machine halts or not, my program terminates or not, the terminating condition reaches or not, right? So what is, now the thing is, the question is, the algorithm is also arbitrary, the program is also arbitrary, and the some input is given. So there are many things inside this, whether that input is suitable or not for that given program, right? All those things, whether the program is correct, it is, it requires some specific input, all those things. So we say that this problem is, this is unsolvable problem. We can't solve this out because we are fixing the input, and my algorithm is arbitrary for any algorithm. Okay, so this is unsolvable problem. Maybe for some problem instance it works, but then it has to work for given any input. Okay, so this is a kind of unsolvable problem. Then another interesting unsolvable problem is known as integer solution. Okay, the question is, we have been given a polynomial equation. This is a polynomial equation wherein there are three variables, x, y, and z. Right? It's a polynomial in terms of x, and there in terms of y also, in terms of z also. Okay, the question is, are there integer values of the variables x, y, z such that the equation is true? Okay, why? Which is making this problem unsolvable is, we want to find the integer values. Okay, we are not saying that any values of x, y, or z. We are not saying that it has to be, it has to be some value which is not completely integer. It is a decimal value. It can be a floating point value. We are not saying that. We want to find out only the integer values of the variables so that it fits the equation. We'll try to solve it, but it's very difficult to find the solution. It is not solvable, to find the integer values of the variable. It is not solvable. So we cannot say, that uh, we generally don't say, we cannot say that there is no solution possible for this XYZ where all the variables are integer values. Okay. So, or else, we can say that, we can say that there is no solution possible for it if we would have tried all possible, we would have tried all possible combinations, and then only I can say that there is no solution. Such value of XYZ is not possible. Why do we say this problem as unsolvable problem? Is because if I had a machine that does all computation for me, keeping different values, all combinations of XYZ, and then put it here and then say that the answer is going to be like this. This is quite interesting because because there is these two terms are positive and this term is negative with power of y as 5. If you closely look into this problem, okay, so if I say that I will try all possible values, all possible integer values of x, y, z, right? So let me keep x as 1, y as 1, z as 1, like that. If I keep on trying, because there are two summations and one negation, I may get this 6. Simply by seeing, I cannot say that this is not possible. So I say that it is not possible to find a solution. It is very difficult for me to verify also. If somebody says, yeah, I can verify, if for one value I can verify, if I have x, y, z, some specific values, I can put it in the equation and verify, no, this is not satisfying, so this is not the solution. But for how long will I keep on trying, right? So that's why it becomes unsolvable. I am not even able to verify whether the solution is the given solution, what all solutions are, they are going to be, uh, they are going to be correct or not, right? So this becomes an unsolvable problem, integer solution. Okay, it's a known unsolvable problem. Then we move up to next problem, that is known as Hamiltonian cycle. Okay, so what happens here? The question is, the problem is, given an undirected graph, G is V, there are number of vertices and edges. What is a Hamiltonian cycle? A Hamiltonian cycle is a cycle. It's a cycle that visits every vertex V exactly once. It's a cycle and it has to visit every vertex only once, exactly once. For example, this is a cycle. In this graph, this is a Hamiltonian cycle. A, B, D, E, F. This is a Hamiltonian cycle. Okay, but if I say this A, B, D and then A, B, D, F, E, this is also a cycle, no? This is a cycle. I mean, not only this one. Because the question is, a Hamiltonian cycle is a cycle that it has to visit every vertex, right? So it has to visit only these. This is one cycle, but this cycle is not visiting all the vertex. This cycle is not visiting all the vertices. So it has to visit all the vertices, but only at once. So now D will be repeated. So this is not a Hamiltonian cycle. What interestingly we saw in this is, in finding out Hamiltonian cycle, if I ask, this is a small graph wherein purposefully, we know that there is a Hamiltonian cycle that exists. If a graph is given to me, undirected graph, let's say, which is quite large, right? Will I be able to find the Hamiltonian cycle, right? So that the thing is, we have to see this problem like this. Uh, if somebody has given me a solution, right? If a graph is given to me and somebody has given me a solution, that can you check this out in this graph, that A, B, D, E, F, whether this is a Hamiltonian cycle or not. So I can check that, right? I am able to verify that. Given a solution, I am able to verify whether that solution is correct or not. That is one property in Hamiltonian cycle problem. Okay, but finding the solution, if a graph is given to me and then finding a solution, so Hamiltonian cycle should touch each of the vertices. So there will be various cycles available because it is a undirected graph. So lot many cycles exist and all the cycles should follow this property. right? So it becomes a problem which is, which becomes little difficult, to find the solution for that. The algorithm does not exist. Okay, but then you can think of an algorithm. You can think of an algorithm for Hamiltonian cycle. It is there also in the slide. Okay, so it is a specific problem wherein we see that, we find that out, that you know if a solution is given to me, I am able to verify whether that solution is correct or not. Okay, that's a specific property of Hamiltonian cycle with which we will continue in this class. Okay. So now the next question is whether, what do we want to say about this Hamiltonian cycle, whether it is a tractable problem, intractable problem, whether it is a solvable problem, or whether it is an unsolvable problem. Okay, it's a solvable problem or it's an unsolvable problem. Okay, so basically, you know that it is solvable. How it is solvable? Because we enumerate all possible paths. Okay, so we will check, that is, include an edge or don't check if it's a Hamiltonian cycle. It is solvable, right? So how much ever theoretically, let us say that the number of nodes are too large. Okay, theoretically, let us say it is possible to solve it. It is solvable because we will see all the paths. I mean, and then we will check whether these paths these paths should contain all the vertices. And then we also have to check whether it is making a Hamiltonian cycle or not. Right? It is possible to solve it. Right? Then how would we do this check exactly, specifically given a graph and a path? A graph is given to me and a path is given to me. Graph and a path. So how do we solve it? Right? That's the next question. So checking, so that's now that makes the problem complicated. Okay, how exactly we check? The graph is given to me and a path is given to me. Okay, so path means there are various paths available, so I have to check, right? So first, so what we will do is we will enumerate all possible paths. Okay, in that is including an edge or don't. We will see all the possible paths. And then, for example, if you see here in this particular graph, we had to see all the paths, right? And then we saw that, okay, if I remove this path, then also there is a cycle. But this is not a Hamiltonian cycle. So we are trying to see all possible paths, and then we want to check, whether Hamiltonian cycle is forming Hamiltonian cycle or not. Right? So theoretically, if you see, you have a kind of solution for it. You will say that, okay, if now the problem is, if somebody is able to enumerate all possible paths for you, okay, it's a big graph and is very large. If we are able to find all possible paths in the graph, and then we are able to check, then we will say that it is a solvable problem. It is a solvable problem. Okay, but all of you know that Hamiltonian cycle problem, we call it as NP complete problem. Okay, what exactly we mean by NP complete problem? So now let us see. And another property of this Hamiltonian cycle problem we saw is that if a solution is given to me, I am able to verify whether the solution is correct or not. Okay, so we write the algorithm for checking the Hamiltonian cycle. Okay, that means I have an algorithm. Okay, so I am not going to discuss the algorithm, but you can just go through the algorithm. I have an algorithm. We have an algorithm that checks whether a given path, you can say, or whether a given cycle, okay, given path, let us say, whether it is forming a Hamiltonian cycle or not. That is easy to do, right? So you will check. So in the given path, you need to check whether the path contains all the vertices, and if it contains all the vertices, and it should contain exactly once. None of the vertices should come two times, right? So you have algorithm for checking the Hamiltonian cycle, right? So you have you have the parts of the algorithm. So basically what you want to do is you want to make sure that the path starts and ends at the same vertex. Given a path P, this is what you want to make sure. and it is of the right length. Because if you want to make it as exactly once, there will be some length for that path, right? So you have to see that what is the length based on how many vertices are there, and including that between one vertices you have one edge. Okay, another condition you have to see with this particular part, that you cannot revisit a vertex and edges has to be in the graph, right? And then at the end you are going to check that you have visited all the vertices. So you have the algorithm for checking the Hamiltonian cycle. Okay, so now you know how do you, for checking Hamiltonian cycle, how do you do it is, it depends now. Okay, so it depends on, you know, which for travel, you know, you want to traverse the graph, you use, you know, you have, what is your data structure, whether you are using adjacency list or adjacency matrix. Based on that you will have some complexity for checking the Hamiltonian cycle. That is fine. Okay, so then we talk about NP problems. Okay, so we have introduced NP problems. So basically, Hamiltonian cycle is one of the example of NP problems. NP indicates that non-deterministic polynomial time. Non-deterministic polynomial time, but it is polynomial. So what happens is, we say like Hamiltonian cycle, we are keeping it as a basic example. So NP is a set of problems that can be verified in polynomial time, right? So you had an algorithm for verifying whether a given cycle, whether a given path, not cycle, whether a given path belongs to the Hamiltonian cycle or not. Okay, so those problems are called as, so now we are trying to classify problems based on P problems or NP problems. Okay, based on the problems which are in polynomial time they have, and NP is non-deterministic polynomial time problem, another kind of classification. Okay, so the basic thing is, we will say that the problems wherein you are able to verify the solution in polynomial time. So given a path, I am able to verify in some polynomial time. Those becomes the NP problems, only NP problems. We have not yet talked about what are NP hard problems, and we have not yet talked about NP complete problems. At the end, we will see that Hamiltonian cycle is a NP complete problem. But right now we are just saying what are NP problems, those can be verified in polynomial time. So the definition of polynomial time is given here. A problem can be verified in polynomial time if you can check that a given solution is correct in polynomial time, right? So the running time, if you try to find out for Hamiltonian cycle, it depends on whether you are using adjacency matrix or you are using adjacency list, right? Because you just have to check, you know, you have to check the path and then you just have to apply whether the path is of correct length, whether you have visited, once you visit a node, you will say that, okay, you have already visited it, so that at the end you can see that whether you have visited all the nodes or not. So running time, it's a polynomial time, OV or OV plus E, right? So what does that say about the Hamiltonian cycle problem? Okay, it says that it belongs to NP. Because of this, we say that because we are able to verify a solution in polynomial time, we say that it is NP. Okay, why might we care about NP problems, right? So we, you know, because we say that it's an NP problem because if you say that, you know, you are not able to verify, you know, if we can't verify the solution in polynomial time, then an arbitrary algorithm cannot exist that determines the solution in this time. Okay, at least you should be able to verify. If you say that you are not even able to verify the solution, you know, given some input, given some particular solution, you are not able to verify whether that solution will exists, whether that solution is correct or not, that means you will never have an algorithm. That means we can't even hope for the algorithms. Okay, so all algorithms with polynomial time solutions are in NP. Okay, the meaning of polynomial time solutions means if the solution is given to me, I am able to find the solution in polynomial time. Then I am able to find the solution in polynomial time. So then this comes under the NP problems. Okay, so similar to your integer programming problem, let me just go back there. Okay, so if I will talk more about that later. Suppose I ask you to check that you keep a value of x as 1, y as 2, and z as 3, and check the solution, right? So you are able to, again, it is little complicated if I say x as 1, y as 2, because it is powers and z powers of something, but you are able to check that. You are able to verify whether this solution is correct or not. Okay, so that is, so you, if you are able to find that out in polynomial time, then you say that it's a NP problem. I am not talking about whether it is solvable till date or not. We are saying that if given a particular values or a particular solution, we are able to verify whether the solution is correct or not. But we are not saying that how to solve it. Right? So the idea is the NP problems that are currently not solvable. Okay, so these problems are NP problems. Okay, but we are not able to solve them. These problems are NP problems, means given a solution, I am able to verify the answer whether it is correct or not, but they are not currently solvable. Okay, solvable in polynomial time, could in theory be solved in polynomial time. Theoretically, we can say, we can hope, it is like we can hope that they can be solved, they could be solved in polynomial time, though the solution is not available right now. Currently, they are not solvable. Right? So then what happens is, basically, P and NP, when you say big O allowed us to group algorithms by runtime, right? So it's like, we have a class of problems P, that is a polynomial time, and because of, this classification has come because of big O. Okay, so NP means the group of problems. So basically it's like making the groups based on how easy it is to solve a problem, whether it is a polynomial time or it is non-deterministic polynomial time. That's about P and NP. Okay, now before talking more about NP problems, right? So we have discussed about NP problems so far, that their solution is, we are able to verify them in polynomial time. Right? The next thing that we are going to talk about is NP hard problems. Okay, we are going to talk about NP hard problems. So what exactly is NP hard problem? We say that a problem is NP hard. I have to give the definition before I go in the slide. We say that a problem is NP hard when I say that any problem, any other problem can be reduced to this particular problem. For example, I will say that Hamiltonian cycle is a NP hard problem. When do I say that? When I say that any other NP complete problem or any other NP problem can be reduced to Hamiltonian cycle problem. Right? If I get something like that any problem, if I am able to reduce to Hamiltonian cycle problem, then I say that it is a NP hard problem. Okay, so what next we need to do now is, now we need to uh, see, what exactly I mean by converting a problem into another problem. Okay, because what is our aim? We are saying, we are classifying the problems like this. A problem, a NP problem, I call it as a NP hard when I am able to convert any other NP problem to that particular problem. Now, what do I mean by converting a problem into another problem? Okay, we have already seen the examples. Okay, yesterday we saw one example. What was that example? We saw that we had a problem of bipartite matching graph, right? And we reduced that bipartite matching graph problem into a network flow problem. Right, like that we did. So that is what we exactly talk about, the reduction functions. Okay, so now, so for that sake, we are now discussing the reduction functions. Okay, so the thing is, given two problems P1 and P2 and a reduction function, We have been given two problems, P1 and P2, and we have also been given a reduction function fx. Okay, so what is a reduction function? Fx is a function that transforms a problem instance x of type P1 to a problem instance of type P2. Then you call this as a reduction function. So what is the idea of reduction function? The idea is such that a solution to x exists for P1 if and only if a solution for fx exists for P2. Okay, I am converting one problem type to another problem type. Then I am saying that the solution exists for x if and only if the solution exists for the problem into which I have converted into. Then only there is a use of converting a function type, of converting a function to converting a problem into another problem. That's why we are introducing the concept of reduction function. Okay, where have we seen the reductions before? Here we are saying that P1 instance that is of type X, P2 instance that is of type Fx. We have seen the reductions to two places so far. We have seen bipartite matching that was reduced to flow problem. Okay, and not only this, I had given you a lot of problems to study. Those were uh, converted to flow problems, network flow problems, right? Edge disjoint problems. Then setting up your wireless sensor network. There are many problems which can be converted to flow problem, wherein you find out the maximum flow. Another thing you have seen that all pair shortest path through a particular vertex that is reduced to single source shortest path, right? So you want to find out all pair shortest path, but what you do is you find single source shortest path one by one that you apply for all the, for all the nodes. So you get all pair shortest path problem. So we have already seen the reduction functions. The problems are reduced. So why are they useful? Right? So you know that why they are useful. Allow us to solve P1 problems if we have a solver for P2. Right? So this helps me that my x using the function f converted to fx. Now I have got the problem P2. The simple thing, if I have a solution for problem P2, okay, the answer is yes, means for my this problem P1 also answer is yes. If I am not able to solve, if solution does not exist for this P2, that means it cannot exist for P1 also. That is the meaning of reduction function. Okay, most of the time we will worry about yes, no question. However, if we have more complicated answers, we often just have to do a little work to the solution to the problem of P2 to get the answer. We are saying that we have converted problem P1 into problem P2. Most of the time we will have the solution for P2. If we do not have the solution, maybe we have to make the solution for P2. And once I get a solution for P2, we can solve P1 as well. That is the idea of reduction function, right? So, example of reduction function that we have discussed, P1 can be bipartite matching and P2 can be the network flow. So we are saying that we have converted problem P1 to problem P2 and then we are solving P2. Okay, so the reduction function is going to be, reduction function f is going to be given any bipartite matching problem, turn it into a network flow problem. That becomes my reduction function. Right? So what is f and what is f dash? What is f? F is this and f dash is if I have to do some transformation to this problem P2 to solve it further. That is what is my f dash. Okay. So it is like so I have the problem P1 given to me. Using f, I have converted to fx and then I solve this problem. I have problem P2, I find the solution. Such that once I have solved the P2, okay, f dash is, you can say some function that is, you can call it as inverse of f, that gives me the solution for P1. That's what is mentioned in this picture. Okay, in this picture, the question is, what is f and what is f dash? Okay, you remember yesterday we did the bipartite matching problem. First, we converted into a flow graph, and when we solved the flow graph problem, we found the maximum flow. It was coming as 3, and we also found that which edge was connected to which edge, right? So from the solution of that, once we found that this edge is connected to this edge, we got the solution for my problem P1 also, right? So we are saying that once you have solved the P2 problem, and if it is a reduction, if it's a reduction problem from the P2 solution, you did not solve, you basically converted your you converted your you converted your bipartite matching problem into network flow problem. You got the solution for network flow problem. From that solution itself, right, you did some f dash, you did some functionality that you are able to get the solution for your bipartite matching, right? What we did was we saw that okay, this is the maximum flow is 3, and then we also found which edges are giving me that flow. That was the solution for my bipartite matching. So that is what is your f dash, that you are doing something to the solution, you know, you are doing something to the solution that you have got from P2 to get the solution for P1. I think I did not explain it clearly here. Okay, so this was the reduction problem. Problem P1 with f, you have an fx, you convert it to problem P2, you solve P2, and then you have f dash to get the solution for P1. I will just read it out. Most of the time we will worry about yes no question. However, if we have more complicated answers, we often just have to do a little work to the solution to the problem of P2 to get the answer for P1. Okay, so that is what is the meaning here, right? So a reduction function, so what basically happens is a reduction function reduces problems instances, right? So now we are defining the term NP hard first, okay? Then we will talk about NP complete. What is the meaning of NP hard? The first line says, again repeat what is an NP problem. NP problems are problems which can be verified in polynomial time. What are NP hard problems? Any NP complete problem. You have any NP complete problem. Okay, suppose there are some set of NP complete problems. Any NP complete problem can be reduced to the problem in polynomial time. Is NP hard? So for example, I will say that Hamiltonian cycle problem is a NP hard problem. When do I say that? When I will say that it's an NP hard problem when I am able to reduce any NP complete problem into the Hamiltonian cycle problem. Okay, when I am able to reduce any problem, any NP complete problem, not any problem, any NP complete problem into Hamiltonian cycle problem, then I will say that Hamiltonian cycle is a NP hard problem. That's what we say here. Okay, so any NP complete problem can be reduced to the problems. Any NP complete problem can be reduced to the problem in polynomial time. Is NP hard? So that problem is known as NP hard. Then we define the term NP complete. We say that a problem is NP complete or a problem belongs to NP complete problem set if it satisfies these two properties. What is the first property? That the problem is NP. That means it is verifiable in polynomial time. Second property is the problem is NP hard. Then you say that it's a NP complete problem. And then we make a note that the Hamiltonian cycle problem is a NP complete problem. What does that mean? If it's a NP complete problem means it can be verified in polynomial time. That is first thing. Second thing is any other NP complete problem can be reduced to Hamiltonian cycle problem. What is the idea? You know, what do we mean by this? Okay, so we say basically what do I mean by this? The idea is because any other NP complete problem can be reduced to, let's say, Hamiltonian cycle problem. That means what? If I am able to solve a Hamiltonian cycle problem, that means I am able to solve any other NP complete problem. That is the meaning. That's why we discuss reduction function. So this is, let us say, problem P2 is my Hamiltonian cycle problem, and P1 is any other NP complete problem. So if I am able to solve, and why? Because these both belong to NP complete problem. That means it's an NP hard problem. So if I am able, so I should be able to convert any problem into Hamiltonian cycle problem. So if I am able to convert any problem into Hamiltonian cycle problem, which is NP hard problem. And if I have a solution for Hamiltonian cycle problem, that means I have a solution for any other NP complete problem. That is the implication. Okay, what does this say about how hard the Hamiltonian cycle problem is compared to other NP complete problems? That's the implication. So we say that it is at least as hard as any of the other NP complete problem. What is the meaning of NP hard is it is at least as hard as any of the other NP complete problem. That is the meaning. The implication is if I found a polynomial time solution to the Hamiltonian cycle problem, okay, what would this mean for other NP complete problems? Right? So if I am able to find a polynomial time solution for Hamiltonian cycle problem, that means I am able to find the polynomial time solution for any other NP complete problem, right? Because if a polynomial time solution to the Hamiltonian cycle problem is found, okay, so for example, you have some NP problem, right, that you are able to convert with the function f into a Hamiltonian cycle problem. Okay, so now if you are saying that if you have a polynomial time solution to the Hamiltonian cycle problem, if that is found, we would have a polynomial time solution to any NP complete problem. Right? Why? Because Hamiltonian cycle is a NP complete problem. Right? So what basically what will be the step? The step will be take the input of the problem, okay, then convert it to the Hamiltonian cycle problem. By definition, we know we can do this in polynomial time. This is possible by definition of NP complete problems. Converting one NP complete problem to another NP complete problem is doable in polynomial time. Hamiltonian cycle is one of the examples. Then you will say solve it because you know that Hamiltonian cycle you have a solution for it. If yes, then output is yes. If no, then output is no. Right? So the thing is, if we found a polynomial time solution to any of the NP complete problem, then we would have a solution to all NP complete problems. Because by definition, we are saying that one NP complete problem can be converted to another NP complete problem. So I should solve only one NP complete problem. Right? Then I am done. Some way I will find the solution for other NP complete problems as well. Okay, so we discussed some of the only the problems, right? We don't have the solution anyways. So we discussed some of the, you can say some of the known or famous NP complete problems. One of the problem is known as longest path. What is the problem? Given a graph G with non-negative edge weights, does a simple path exist from S to T with weight at least G? With weight at least G. It can be more than G. Okay, so minimum weight is given, that the path should contain. This is a NP complete problem. Another problem that we saw already, that is whether it has an integer solution or not, integer linear programming. Linear programming with the constraints that the values must be integers. Now it's about linear programming. Okay, it's not polynomial. There are linear, the equation is in terms of x, y, z only. Okay, so it's a linear programming problem, integer linear programming with the constraints that the values must be integers. Again, that is an NP complete problem. Okay, then another interesting NP complete problem is called as 3D matching. Okay, so before talking about 3D matching, we talk about bipartite matching. Bipartite matching is what? Given two sets of things and a pair constraint. In bipartite matching, two sets are given and a pair constraint is also given, and you find a matching between the sets. And the question was yesterday, like we discussed, we want to find a maximum matching. Right? That's a bipartite matching. Then what is 3D matching? 3D matching has three sets of things and a triplet constraint. In bipartite matching, we have the constraints between a pair. In 3D matching, we have a constraints, among all the three sets. So that is called as triplet constraints. And we want to find a matching between these sets. And we want to maximize it. There are three sets here. This, and this. So you don't want, so you are not matching between, the matching is not happening between two sets, it is happening between three sets. That is called as 3D matching. right? So this is the last slide for today. Hopefully we will start with CNF in the next class. So we talk about P versus NP. So the P are the problems that we have already discussed. I think I did not discuss the slide 1, right? So we had seen, so in slide 1 we have put these are the problems which were all polynomial time problems. Who will tell me for which algorithm it is O n to the power 1.67? Okay, so we should know what is, which algorithm has this complexity O n to the power. Huh? Somebody said something. I could not hear. Okay, so which algorithm has O n to the power 1.67? Which algorithm has O n to the power 1.5? You must be knowing. Anyways, you prepare for your placements, these things. So we are talking about, yeah. So P versus NP. So P is so obviously, that is what we have come across most of the time. We discuss these algorithms. The polynomial time solution exists for, for the P. These are the, called as polynomial time problems. Okay. So shortest path. Okay. Then bipartite matching. A solution exists, right? We converted bipartite matching into network flow problem. So we have a solution that is existing. We yesterday discussed the, based on which max flow you will use, whether you will use pre-flow push, whether you will use, the algorithm that we discussed, Ford-Ferguson, or you will use another variation of it. Accordingly, there will be a change in the complexity. But these all are P problems. Linear programming. Purposely, I have written linear programming here. It's linear programming. It is not integer linear programming. Linear programming is solvable problem. That's a P problem, because you are not having a constraint that the value of the variables has to be some integer. So this is linear programming. So we must be careful when we talk about ILP or we talk about LP. LP is linear programming. Then you have minimum cut. These all are P problems. NP complete problems and no polynomial time solution currently exists. They are NP complete problems because they are first NP problems. That means they are verifiable in polynomial time and they are NP hard. NP hard means any problem can be converted to these problems, right? So longest path, 3D matching, integer linear programming, balanced cut, these are your NP complete problems. Okay, in fact, you would have seen if for your project work and all, when you are doing, some kind of research, you would have seen this ILP a lot, so when sometimes to tell the complexity of the problem, the researchers also say that this can be converted to an ILP, integer linear programming problem. Sometimes they convert it to ILP, wherein, in generally, in hardware related problems, in hardware related research, you will find this use of ILP a lot, because if your XYZ are some devices, right? So they have to be taken in integer. You cannot use half of the device. If you are using an adder, or if you are using, let us say, a multiplexer, you cannot use it half. So those problems generally are converted to ILP, sometimes to make it, ILP, and then, to prove the, the complicacy in the research work, that it's really complicated, because when you say ILP, you are able to convert this problem to ILP. It's a NP problem, they say. It's a NP complete problem, wherein finding the solution is very, very difficult. Okay, so in research, generally they use to prove the complexity, that the problem is really hard to solve, so that when you provide a solution, some kind of solution, people are able to appreciate. So therein, I have seen this use. Other things I have not seen. Maybe other kind of research, they use longest path or 3D matching kind of a problem. Okay, so we wind up here, students. So this portion you can just read, go through yourself. how do you prove the NP completeness? When you have to say that a problem is NP complete, you have to prove two things. Okay, first is the problem is NP, and then you have to prove that any other problem can be converted to this problem. Okay, so these proving NP completeness, it is just theory wise. Okay, so it has been put here, and I've already shared the slide. Okay, so this thing you can do it. Okay, so we will start tomorrow from NP complete 3 SAT problems from this slide number 50. I will start tomorrow. The idea is I am able to complete it. We are able to talk about all these problems tomorrow. Okay, thank you, students. Thank you very much. 1 minute, just hold on. Is Ekant here in this class now? Ekant, are you there? No, he's not there. All right, students, we can wind up. No problems. Thank you, students. So tomorrow we are meeting. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, day after is the quiz. Okay.
Ma'am, could you upload the slides as well for this?